didn't travel. But
Okay.
definitely 2026 is on the radar to pass and say hi and see everybody again.
Later on, we just wanted to show off our new logo, the ACMP Global Association of Change Management Professionals rebranded recently. And South Africa, the South African chapter, we were called South African chapter. And because we have many members from basically all Namibia, Eswatini, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Uganda, Mozambique, Lesotho, etc., we then asked that our name be changed to the Southern African chapter because we do represent more than just South Africa. So, welcome to everybody who are also from the rest of Southern Africa that's here at our webinar today. Um, in terms of the webinar that we're having today, it is coaching and change, fresh insights from South African research. And Sue and Alison will tell you more about that. They partnered with us. They did most of the work, but it was in partnership with the ACMP Southern African chapter that they then did the research. If you want to, we like you to be active in the chat. So if you can just indicate in the chat where you are joining us from, what do you do in the broadest sense, whether you're in change management, HR, coaching, etc. If you can just share that on the chat as we say hello to everybody. And I will now hand over to our Deputy Director, Strategic Partnerships, Unati, to just do a formal welcome to you all. Unati.
Okay, I think Unati is on mute.
Right.
Uh,
Thank you so
Unati, are
much.
you there? Okay.
Yes, I'm here. I'm here. Can you believe it? After all this time, I still battle with the technology. A very good morning, everyone. Thank you, Lydia, for introducing myself to the team. A very warm welcome from myself on behalf of the Southern African chapter of ACMP. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome everyone to this webinar that will be covering fresh insights from the South African Research on Coaching and Change on behalf of ACMP Southern African chapter. I also want to particularly thank our neighboring country membership who have made it possible for us to reach this very important milestone of moving from AMCP South Africa to AMCP Southern Africa. Without you guys, we would not have reached this milestone. Thank you and a warm welcome to you. A special warm welcome to our international partners and colleagues that are in the call. And I would have not done justice if I don't mention in particular Peter Kelly, who is the chairperson of ACMP New Zealand and Australian chapter. We have been working with him closely over the last couple of months, and you are most welcome, Peter, to be in the session. And I also, before I step down and hand over to Lydia to proceed, I want to particularly welcome our speakers today, Sue and Alison, and thank you very much for agreeing to come and share your insights with the rest of the people in the call. Thank you very much, and I hand over back to Lydia. Thanks.
Thanks, Unati. So let's look at just a few housekeeping rules. If you can keep yourself mute, except when there's now opportunity for questions and comments. In terms of Wi-Fi, it is sometimes unstable. We hope that it won't happen. But please, if one of us drop off, we will come back. So don't get panicky. In terms of the chat, we do like you to stay engaged in the chat. So please feel free to post comments, If you even want to attach things, please do so. We learn a lot from each other during these sessions, but please, I have seen sessions where people use it as a marketing opportunity, especially when I attend the Josh Burson webinars. And I don't think that's the purpose, but the purpose is to share knowledge per se, and to also post your questions in the chat. And if you have a practical example to illustrate something, then you feel free to post that in the chat. So engage in the chat around our topic. This webinar is recorded. And if anybody is interested in the recording afterwards, you can just contact Elise, our administrator, to request the recording. But those are the few housekeeping rules. Susan and myself will also look in the chat if there are questions or comments, and then we'll alert Alison and Sue regarding that. Then, sorry, I just want to take that. We will also have some a competition. As usual, we would like you to stay till the end. And because you will stay to the end, there will be some prizes that will be handed out at the end. Now, the prizes, sorry, I will discuss with you later. Just a little bit about the Association of Change Management Professionals. The vision of this global association is to lead the way change works, and it serves as an independent and trusted source of professional excellence. It advocates for the discipline of change management, and it creates a thriving change community. So the membership of ACMP Global is increasing day by day, and you could also be part of that community. There's more, if you look at what you get because you're part of the ACMP community, there's a standard for change management. There's a certified change management professional program. There's a qualified education provider program, or the QEP, where you then can, if you associated with ACMP, you get this endorsement, and people also know that they get quality training. There's a lot of networking and professional development. There's a community, and there's various tools, and they also advertise career opportunities. So if you go to acmpglobal.org, you can join there. And when you join, you can then become part of the ACMP, sorry, and I still have to change it here, Southern African chapter. But we aim to also build a connected professional community of change practitioners in Southern Africa, and that deploy the latest tools to propagate knowledge and change management, on change management, and to build capability for our members. We focus on anybody basically that's involved in change management, your change practitioners, business and institutional leaders, other interested groups. That could be project managers, HR managers, coaches, everybody interested in change. Our leadership at the moment is here. I'm not going to stand on this slide for too long, but you can see there is a committee of dedicated people that's making these things happen. If you want to join the ACMP SA chapter, you have to become an ACMP member. And then when you join, you select the ACMP Southern African chapter, and then we will get to know about you, and we will involve you in our activities. The prizes that are up for grabs, so as usual, we have 1 year's membership for one person, sponsored by Pulo. And if you stay connected, you can be the winner of that. There's also 2 people that will win 1 coaching session each. 1 session by Alison, 1 session by Sue, and that is sponsored by MetaView Coaching and Consulting. Then the Talent Hub International is sponsoring 5 packets of the psychological safety card game. So we can have 4 winners today if you stay till the end. I would like to now introduce our speakers. The first is Sue Morris. Sorry, I just want to move this away. Now, Sue is a global leadership executive and team coach. In her coaching and consulting practice, she works systemically to create well-led, psychologically safe spaces that ignite high performance. And Sue is a very dedicated coach as well. We've worked with her before in a coaching capacity, and she started MetaView with a vision to make workplaces more human and more joyful. She writes and speaks about how businesses can transition from a machine age paradigm of work, I don't know, now in AI, and unleash the potential we all possess. Alison is a business and personal coach who uses her coaching skills and business experience to assist individuals, teams, and companies to negotiate change in a practical and people-focused way. In this age of rapid technology change, success through technology innovation is elusive without the adoption by the people whom the change is designed to benefit. So you can see that both Sue and Alison are, they have extensive coaching experience, but they also look at the underlying change management process in coaching. So without further ado, I would like to hand over to Sue and Alison to take us through coaching and change and provide fresh insights from the South African research. So I'm going to stop sharing. Over to you, Sue and Alison.
Thank you so much, Lydia. I'm going to start sharing. Yeah, there we go. And welcome, everybody. Goodness, there's a lot more people than I was expecting, and people from all over the globe. Some familiar faces there too. Lovely to see you all, and thanks for joining us today. Yeah, so we're talking about the most recent project we've been working on, which is which was a qualitative piece of research that we conducted in partnership with the ACMP. And yeah, we're going to just dive straight in, I think. One of the things, I'm just going to add a little bit of flavor to our introductions that Lydia gave us there. And something that you may not know about Alison is that she recently undertook a really challenging change project. She basically had to change location and change flavor of ice cream every single day. Can you imagine the change resistance? So she, with great fortitude, managed to try, I don't know, how many flavors was it, Ali? Quite a few.
At least 2 flavors a day. My favorite was the cheesecake flavor.
I have quite a lot of photographic evidence of it. So just living proof that change can be done. And actually, in that case, no coaching was required.
And the Sue that you see here is an example of change with coaching, or coaxing, if you like. She's fishing on the Zambezi, and she has managed to coax a catfish out of the river by tugging firmly but gently, a couple of pauses and stops, letting him go out a bit, and then putting him in some more. So there was quite a lot of change for her, quite a lot of resistance from the catfish, but she was successful in the end.
Thanks, Ellie. Yeah, I was a bit horrified by the whole experience.
Did you throw him back? That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah.
Okay.
The fish goes back, catch and release. Yeah.
Ah,
Ultimately, our coaches have to be on their own.
absolutely.
We'd love to see just who's with us from a sort of coaching or change perspective. So if you wouldn't mind just editing your names, and obviously when you go into breakout rooms, we've got a couple of those today. It'd be really useful for folks to see which perspective you might be coming from. So please edit your Zoom name if you're able to. I know some people are on mobile and that may be a bit tricky. But those are the instructions there. If you go to participants in the meeting control and you hover over your name, you should find three little buttons or a more, and then you can try and rename. It'd be good to just see who's in the room and identify ourselves.
I
Fantastic.
think, Stu, if people are struggling to do that, they can also put in the chat just their perspective.
Yeah, it's no problem if there's any hassles. Just thought it might be nice as we go into the rooms. So we are going to put you into some breakout rooms already, just to get a little sense of who we all are. And there are two questions that I'd like you to think about, and they're going to be quite quick. This is going to be a quick breakout. We're going to put three of you in a room, and the questions that I'd like you to chat about are: what challenge or curiosity nudged you to show up today? So what was it that made you say, oh, I think I want to attend this session today? And it could be the prizes, I know, because I was quite keen on some of those myself. And then what is one insight or takeaway that you're secretly hoping for? What are you hoping we might have found in this research about coaching and change? So if I could ask you just to make the breakout rooms for us, Elise.
One thing quickly, Sue, I see some people are saying they are neither coach nor change practitioners. They're in talent acquisition or in HR or in OD.
Magic.
So you can
pop
put
that in
whatever
as well.
else. It doesn't have to be just coach or change.
Yeah, however you identify. These days we're super flexible. Fantastic. You should be getting your invitations to your breakout rooms now, and we'll see you back in 6 minutes.
In progress.
Please remember to mute yourselves as you return. And I'd love to just hear in the chat what came up in your groups if you managed to join them. What nudged you to be here today, and is there something you're secretly hoping to hear?
So, Sue, I see some responses already in the chat.
Yeah. Okay,
New insights, learning to manage resistance to change.
Yeah, it's important to keep learning. What moves the needle? Yeah. Business transformation. Yeah, we hear so much about business transformation these days.
Okay, it looks like everybody's back, Sue and Alison.
Is there
Gavin,
a silver bullet?
No. I love that.
I wish there was. There's ice cream, but there's no silver bullet.
Yeah, thank you. Amazing. Good. Some nice connections in your groups. Yeah, thank you again for joining us today. Keep those insights coming. We're gonna move on. So this diagram just talks about the map or the territory that we've been looking at, and you know, in the way that we think about it, there's professional coaching as a profession and change management as a profession. And actually, our journey, this journey started when I attended an ICF presentation. It was actually we were lucky to have it online. It was an event that normally takes place in person. And there were people presenting there on the collaboration internationally that's happening between the ICF, the International Coaching Federation, and the ACMP globally. And they're working together to figure out what is this overlap between our professions and how can we add to one another. Ultimately, their question was, how do we work better together in order to bring about better change? And that work continues, and we followed some of that, and actually, maybe Elise, you can post the longer presentation. There's some of the data that sits in there as well. We've got a PDF that will be available for all of you to download with a fuller research presentation than the slides that we are sharing today. So if you want to learn more about that background, that's in there. And so, yeah, what we're really trying to get to in our research is, well, what's happening in South Africa? That's what we became really curious about. You know, what is there an overlap? When is it overlapping? How is it overlapping? And yeah, so we decided to partner with the local chapter, the Southern African chapter, and to see what we could find out. And Ali's going to take us through a little bit of the research design now.
Okay, so just following on from what Sue's saying, so our objectives were to find out how coaching is being used in South Africa in change projects. And as she was saying too, how we can support each other. We had this hypothesis that coaching is mainly used with the leaders and that it's not really seen as a change initiative yet. So we wanted to test that. And then we also wanted to find out what the barriers are to using coaching here in South Africa, what we're all experiencing, and just why it's not being used, to understand how and when coaching does work. So to understand what's happening, where it's being used, why it's successful. So all of those sorts of things. Our research plan, if you like, we put together a research guide with input from the ACMP chapter and prepared questions that covered 4 sections or 4 different topics. We wanted to understand, first of all, the people we were interviewing. We wanted to understand their role and environment so that we would know where they're coming from. And then we wanted to know whether they understand their perspective of coaching and the experience of coaching. Are they coaches? Had they delivered coaching? Had they experienced coaching? And we wanted to find out if they had experienced coaching on the change projects, then who was doing the coaching? When was it happening? So questions all related to that. And barriers to change, as I mentioned, we had a group of questions related to the barriers. We spoke to people in South Africa only. We did initially want to explore further into Southern Africa, but we didn't really have enough time or people. And as Sue said right at the beginning, this is qualitative research. So we had 25 one-on-one interviews between August and October 2024. And by qualitative, we mean we gathered information, analyzed that information, but not quantitative, in that we didn't say how many coaches said this and how many change managers said that. So it's all qualitative research. We had our interview participants were change practitioners, coaches. Some were both change practitioners and coaches, and some HR and OD practitioners. some talent acquisition people. So we had a lot of variety. We had people who came from different professional backgrounds. So some were independent freelance people, some were working for consultancy companies, some were in-house change practitioners or in-house coaches for corporates and in different industries. So we had some finance and others. So it was a really nice broad base of 25 people.
Just to jump in, Ellie, just
Yes.
yeah, just on the qualitative thing. What that means is that there is no, this is a thematic presentation. This isn't finite in any sense. And so if you have a different view or a different experience, we'd actually love to hear that today. It certainly means that that's absolutely valid. This is not exhaustive research. It's really a dipstick looking at some of the themes that are happening. Roberta, I see you had your hand up. I don't know whether that was just a mistake or you had a question for us.
Oh no, that was a mistake. Sorry.
Okay, awesome. We'll carry on then.
So we heard a great deal of things. What was interesting is that we heard things that we weren't expecting to hear. We heard a lot of themes related to change management, and never mind whether we are using coaching in change management or not, we discovered that there were a number of things that the change management profession and practitioners were really struggling with. So not even getting to using coaching, but just what are they actually struggling with? So some of the things that came out was there are new technology and new methodologies coming to South Africa, but well, they knew around the world that people have been hearing about, but they haven't reached South Africa yet. So we're still using what we've been using for a number of years. A lot of our feedback was based around money and around budgets. So there's not enough spend in not enough money being put into the budgets for change management. People are spending just enough on change. So there are a number of projects. Well, the project starts and a budget is allocated, but there's not enough being spent on the change management side. There's a spending just enough was one of the quotes. One of the people said is what is happening. There's money's being spent elsewhere. You want to put them all up because I'm not going to wander around. Okay, fabulous. Thank you. So the bottom line is one of the themes that came out is that there's an immaturity in the change management profession. And I don't mean that you are immature or that you are not competent, but in terms of being accepted by your clients. So many of your clients do not understand what change requires. They're not really up to speed on what is beneficial from change management and how it can actually be used. We heard that it's often sold at the wrong level in business, the wrong department. So for example, you might have a big implementation of a new system, and it is being sold in the IT department. The IT department is handling it, and it's being set up as a separate project and being quoted for, RFQs going out, accepted, and the tenders accepted in the IT department, but not being sold at the right level, not being sold in the right, it's not necessarily the wrong department, but it shouldn't be the only department that is being involved in the actual change. There's often a lack of resources in change projects. So people are allocated to change projects, project managers, etc., but not necessarily change managers, and there just aren't enough people to go around. We also heard from some of the people we interviewed is that leaders and sponsors don't want to be involved in the change management methodology. So they want you to get on with your change management role and your change management job, but they don't necessarily want to be included and have to make decisions in various places, and they don't want to follow that methodology. Let's go to the next one. Thank you. One of the other themes that came through very strongly is that there's a lack of people impact consideration. So when a change project or when a change happens, like a big implementation of a new system, for example, it happens as a project with a separate budget, but it has a business case, it has project managers, as I mentioned just now, but there isn't a change management component built in from the beginning. And with that, there isn't a business, the businesses don't build in the people impact from the beginning. So that is quite important, in that the people who are impacted, who I call the victims, aren't actually included right from the beginning and all the way through the process. And with this idea that there isn't enough money allocated, there isn't enough budget, there isn't enough budget to actually allocate to change management and to allocate to engaging all the people from the beginning and all the way through the project. Can we go to the next slide? If you want to add anything, Sue.
Sorry, I'm just multitasking here because I've drawn
Multitasking.
something on the screen. So basically there's a yellow line. But there's some really great comments in the chat, and I encourage everyone just to read and engage. Yeah, I think this, your experience here is echoing a lot of these themes of just some of the perception of how we're perceiving change, and that in itself really represents a challenge for us as change managers and coaches, but also in having effective change, in facilitating successful change. It's really the mindset and the perception here.
So there's this, so some of the feedback we received is that the change management processes and models are too scientific. So it's all very well when you have a implementation of an IT system, for example, and you follow your plan and you follow your methodology. But when you are dealing with a restructure, or when you're dealing with a much more people-focused project, the change management processes can be too rigid and not circular enough, and not include enough feedback from people, and just allow to be able to go back a bit, forward a bit, and include the people, get feedback, as I say, and allow to make changes along the way. One of the ProSci quotes that I read that I was really interested in, it says, even with an effectively architected plan, the most commonly cited reason for project failure is problems with the people side of change. So if you are following a really rigid scientific process and you're not allowing things to change as you flow, and allowing people to come in, and allowing things to change, to take people's resistance into consideration, it does hamper the process quite a bit. We also learned that there's a resistance to following a rigorous process. So some of you said to us that companies don't like the rigid process. They don't want to follow the change management process. And your change management methodology is really important to keep you on track and to make sure you tick all the boxes in order to get through all the steps to have a successful project, like a project manager does with the project plan. But some of you are struggling with being able to actually follow your methodology in companies, because they don't want to do that. They just want to do their own thing. And that's at the other extreme of the the continuum. It's not going to work if you don't have some kind of methodology. It would be nice if it was a little more fluid, but if you're going to have no methodology and no process, you're also going to miss a lot. So that was something that was interesting for us in terms of feedback. What's our next one, size?
I mean, it's really an opportunity now just to hear from everyone. And I'm wondering, I think it's a Tandwe, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I mean, I just found your comment so lovely that the change management is such a big focus in leadership. I don't know whether you want to unmute. I don't want to put you on the spot. But it's really core to what you do, it sounds like.
Yeah. So the business, so yes, you did pronounce my name correctly. Thank you. So the business has a core focus when it comes to leadership, right? And that core focus we do understand because we are in the banking industry and change is constant. How I normally present a position to any candidate that would like to join, I position the Capitec culture as it's a changing environment. So it's fast paced. Today's decisions are supposed to be made today so that tomorrow we can take other decisions. So that is why we are totally focusing on leaders to have this component in terms of change management, because it's not only affecting how we do work in terms of processes, but also it speaks to how we are taking care of our people. So it's very important to actually have that within our leadership as a KPI. And how we develop that, there's always workshops that are being generated so that the leaders can be strengthened, and also that skill can also be trained in a constant way. So that's how we are doing it from our side.
It's like you're kind of insourcing the skill into businesses. Yeah, I sort of, as you said, change is constant. I was thinking, actually, change is not constant, because what's going to happen with AI is change is growing at an exponential rate. I mean, I think AI is probably the biggest change project that we've ever seen in workplaces. And so in a way that represents a huge opportunity for the change community. But only if people like yourselves really understand that change and changeability is really central to keeping going and to being successful. Thanks so much.
Sue,
Yes,
I just want to say what resonated with me is the fact that organizations don't want to follow that rigid change management process. I think the process is very important, but sometimes we get stuck in the process. And I think, as Alison said, it's just a tick box exercise. Do a stakeholder analysis, do this, do that, but we don't integrate the methodology with the change in a way. I don't know how to say that. But then it becomes more a mechanistic approach, and I think that is what organizations kick against. I think the more experienced the change management practitioner, they will still use that process, but in a more flexible manner. That's just what so it resonated with me that they don't want to follow just that rigid process.
It's often a catch-22 situation, though, because you've been given so little budget and so little time, you can do the bare minimum. You have to follow a rigid process just to get through doing what you know must be done from a change management perspective. So sometimes you're caught between a rock and a hard place. It's you don't have the time or the budget to be able to be a bit more fluid, you know.
Yeah.
So it's really struggling. I mean, we heard a lot about sometimes tenders going out and the lowest tender, the lowest quote coming back gets accepted, and that may have no change management in other than a bit of training, and that's so you're in a hard place right from the beginning, and you may only be called in to do your change management much later in the process and not be involved right from the beginning. And then you have to play catch up, and you have to use the little bit of budget that you were given as sparsely as possible, So it's there you have lots of challenges in this space, so which is what we heard. One of the things that really surprised me
Annie, sorry,
yes.
there's Wamata has got her hand up, and again, I'm
Oh,
not sure if I'm
lovely.
pronouncing it correctly.
You're okay. Thank you. I was I was like, me. Good afternoon,
Yeah,
or is it afternoon
see
yet? Greetings from Nairobi. I just wanted to pitch in real quick around because I'm coming at this from a consultant perspective. And
Mhm.
about, 10 years ago, people were like, what do you mean change? They're like, oh, this sounds like some kumbaya stuff, right? But over the years, we've adjusted how we approach even the proposal writing. And I hear you on the pricing because sometimes, the lower bid, might come through as the winning bid. But one of the things we found very useful here is to building that change work stream together with the other work streams so that it doesn't look like a lesser work stream as far as the different phases are concerned. And it touches on all 4 pointers. And again, this goes to methodology where you are using the ProSci approach, but also being a bit flexible where we jump in with leadership as our first pillar, because we know that's like the key part of success, even getting any support for change, and then come through with the stakeholder engagement. But I just wanted to zoom in on methodology a little bit because one of the things we talk about stakeholder mapping, but in ERP, one of the things we've had to develop for ourselves is a way of looking at the impact, like if it's a whole system transformation, what are the processes that are, most highly affected? If it's finance, if it's HR, if it's going to be, sales, if you're doing a CRM, and then linking that back into now what becomes your training approach and strategy so that they're able to see the impact up front. And it kind of, gives them a bit of a shocker where they're like, oh my God, this is huge impact. We're going to need more support. We're going to need more resources than we had planned for. So I'm really pro sort of using our methodology as a handrail, but then really tying that into what the business needs so that it makes complete sense for them. And you'll go from one, transformation to the other, and it's a complete shift in terms of what they require vis-a-vis our methodology. But I just wanted to encourage us to add in that change work stream if you're in that consulting space, or even if you're doing a proposal internally, and just make such a strong business case for it. And then tracking ROI at the end in terms of saying, this is the return on what we sunk in. And that makes the exec sort of sit up and listen. So just a couple of things that both resonated with me, or just a different, perspective in terms of an approach going forward. So thanks for that.
That's
Thank you.
fabulous input, and that speaks to being able to position your proposal at the right level of leadership. Sometimes you're not able to do that, and that shows the importance of getting to the exec and not just the department head, for example. So your pitch must be at the right level of leadership so that you get the buy-in and you get the support.
Lovely comments also in the chat about flexibility and different metaphors for flexibility that can really, help us get away from this very rigid approach.
Lovely.
So just moving on, one of the other things that we found really without looking for it is that the coaching profession has some inherent challenges in South Africa. And these really stem from the fact that it is a fairly immature industry here. Many clients are not familiar with coaching. So we heard this from change managers. I still hear it from some of my coaching clients. They don't really know what it is or how it works. And there's some misunderstandings of what coaching is. One of the other things that this quote just highlights is that it's still got this association with being a remedial tool. So it's used for generally senior executives and most probably when they are not performing, we put a coach in. And so there's that, those are still quite strong associations with coaching in the marketplace. And that's challenging because if we're not working off a common understanding of what coaching is and what it can do, that it's going to be a tough sell. Also, coaching is seen very often as advice and guidance. So we actually use the metaphor, and I think Ali is at the Prosky model also that uses the tennis coach as an idea of a coach. Now that's what we would call very transactional coaching. Here's the next step. Go ahead and do it. How are you feeling about that? Great. Here's the next step. Step by step. I'm the expert, and let me guide you with my expertise. And in fact, that's absolutely not the way the ICF defines professional coaching. So that is much more of a transformational process where the client leads and the coach doesn't lead that process. They're not, in fact, it's the opposite of giving advice. It's helping that individual to come up with their own way forward. Based on their beliefs and their values. So yeah, there's certainly a lot of work to be done in passing out these different forms of coaching and how they might be useful at different parts of a change process. Then there's a cost thing that comes up quite a lot. Coaches are considered to be very expensive. And I think for many, this is a sort of a hangover from they're only for executives, and executive coaches earn a huge amount of money. And this quote was, why I can get a change manager who can do some coaching, some sort of training coaching. Why must I pay 2,000 Rand for a coach? So really there a misunderstanding of the potential value that a coach could bring. And also, I think there is coaching available these days that is online. There's organizations like Hello Coach that really can do quite democratized coaching at quite reasonable rates. So I think this idea of this, very premium coaching is something that, again, coaching has work to do to change in the marketplace. We also heard that as change managers, there's an awful lot of time invested in winning projects, in putting together the tenders, in structuring them. That's a lot of work and time invested. And then with that sort of poverty mindset, you get the project, but you don't even have enough to do the basics really well. Why then are you going to start giving away any of your revenue to coaches? Like that just didn't seem to make any sense to anybody. If we can barely do what we need to do just to get our process running, where's the extra fat for the coaches was kind of the thinking. And I think that's a fair enough question. And it's also, I suppose, combined with the fact that the proposals are not including coaching. We didn't find many folk who are doing that. We did find some, and some on the other end of the continuum who believe that coaching is, in fact, the only way to really undertake effective change. But we heard very little of that and much more of the, why do we even need it? Then a perception that coaching isn't measurable. It's not data-led. It's this mushy kind of process that you might want to have, but really, how do you actually know that it's working? And I think that's a great question. And I think that historically coaching hasn't been particularly data-led. Interestingly, there are now, with platform-based coaching, there are many more ways to measure the impact of what is actually happening with coachees. And the impact as seen within the organization as well. So that is also changing, but not something that I think coaching as a profession is communicating very widely. So yes, it can be data-led, and in fact, it can even be a very welcome source of insight as long as it's contracted in that way. It doesn't have to be a closed black box, as is so often thought about in the coaching context. And finally, the sense that everyone's a coach, right? Anybody can be a coach. This low barrier to entry. And I think you'll see in different parts in the presentation, we do try to make a distinction between professional coaching and then some of the potentially life coaching that exists, where you can, in fact, do a weekend course and call yourself a coach. The coach training that professional coaches invest in is actually a fairly significant significant training. Not all of it is easy, I will say that. And actually, so yes, there isn't a barrier to entry, but there is a difference between professional coaching and other coaching. And I do think that also needs to be explained a little bit better to the market. Many don't see the need for coaching as they believe their models work, but sustainable change is very hard. And I think this is, potentially where the real benefit of coaching comes in. We all know how hard it is even to change our own behaviors sustainably. And certainly in organizations, when you're undertaking big or rapid change, the mindsets and the resistance that come up to that is exactly the place, I think, where coaching can play a role. But many don't understand and don't see this. They haven't experienced coaching themselves. And so this sense of sustainable change being hard is something that I believe coaching could support with. It's just not well seen and known in the market. This is a great quote, I thought, actually. What coaches, what level, and what understanding of change? So not every coach is going to understand the full picture of what the change project entails, particularly, by the way, if they're just brought in when the pawpaw hits the fan. There's another great quote that I'm talking about ahead of its turn, but that's often when coaches are brought in, like change managers, brought in at the last minute when there's a drama. Coaches are occasionally brought into change when there's a massive resistance. That's incredibly difficult then to show any efficacy or to partner in any way with the change process. So as you'll see, this question is really good because we don't, in fact, know how to work together. We haven't figured out, because we haven't really had so much of that opportunity, how to design together, which modalities of coaching might be useful at which stages and where is coaching needed and where is it not needed. It's certainly not needed all the time in change. So yeah, I thought a very good example of just how we haven't even started yet to understand some of these things. What are the capacities that need to exist in a coach? What experience do we need in coaches to have them partner with us in change projects? At the heart of change failure is a failure to understand the emotional journey and to integrate this into the change process. So here we're starting to hear what I think is the sweet spot of coaching, of really understanding that we're working not with a logical system, we're not working with machines in a logical system, we're working with humans, very different humans in different places with different perspectives and different mindsets and different beliefs, and in fact different identities that sometimes get in the way of undertaking change. And this is exactly where coaching can be applied, I think, when we start to understand, when organizations start to understand that this is about humans in their most emotional and they're least logical at times because, of course, it makes sense. We know what's in it for them. We know all of that, and yet there's still resistance. L&D have certainly picked up on coaching from a learning perspective. So we started to hear that coaching is more associated with other areas of business than it is associated with change. So there's strong links in L&D to using coaching. So we've got leadership development, and we often have a coaching process alongside that. And so it's curious for me that L&D has picked up on something. So why is that then important in leadership, which is a change process, but it's not important in other change processes? So I thought that was something useful to reflect on. And also, it's often seen as an HR thing. It sits in HR. It doesn't sit in business as usual. So why do we use, no, the HR people do the coaching. We don't do the coaching. And then finally, we had this association also with wellness. So sometimes that came up as, oh, it's fine. If anybody's not feeling comfortable about the change, they can use the wellness counselor to talk to them on an ad hoc basis, and that should be fine. So yeah, just getting this association of coaching and change is, in fact, I think part of the real challenge here. And then this quote about confidentiality. And this starts to bring up what Alison and I call the two hat, or I'm wearing two hats issue. So if you're a change manager and you have a change project and change objectives and change deliverables, and then you start to coach somebody, it's not a confidential container. There's some ethics potentially that are challenged in that process. But also, why am I going to share with you when you're driving the agenda, when your vested interest is to have the change project work and get me over the line? Why am I going to share with you? So there's something about the confidentiality and the impartiality of coaches brought into a process that I think can make it exceptionally powerful. And this is starting to get to a sense of that value. And then somebody just saying, I've had a clear experience with the two hat issue. It's very problematic. So sometimes it's hard if you're trying to hold a confidential space, but also drive another agenda. That's an incredibly challenging place to be if as a change manager, you're trying to undertake the coaching at the same time. So yeah, there are a lot of myths about coaching out there. Tutsi, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, I do. Good morning.
Hi. Morning.
Fantastic. Thanks. Interesting enough, just the slide you just been at with regards to being a coach and at the same time a change manager. Funny enough, that is how I'm doing it, because that is the only way I can be able to break into the mindset that we have at work. And interestingly, I'm finding that the respective teams end up trusting me because firstly, my role does not sit within HR, which makes it easier for me.
Yeah.
So what I do, I would usually do your change readiness engage, like the survey, and then I do the focus groups. And then from there, having observed the teams and picked which are the people that probably are a bit resistant or have some reservations or whatever, I would then have one-on-one sessions with them. And then from there, I also continuously coach the respective sponsors to just make them aware of the fact that change is one person at a time. You know, that whole ProSci analogy about teaching people that it starts with one person and then it drills down to everybody else, and that you should also not leave anybody behind. So just that approach for me has worked in such a way that I believe that I've gained more trust within the organization from doing that, because at the end of, before I start everything, there's a disclaimer to say it's a confidential setting. Whatever is discussed there stays there. And that for me works. But I hear you where you're coming from with the fact that sometimes you need to really distinguish between the two as to coaching and being a change person. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Particularly
there's
if
value
you
to
are coming, sorry,
yeah.
Sue, particularly if you are coming from an outside consultant, it's very hard to be both. But I heard you saying that you've built up rapport with them over time. So I'm assuming that you are functioning as a coach and a change person within the company.
Yes, I am.
So
Yes,
then
I am.
you've built up trust and you've built up some psychological safety there, and you haven't screwed over any of the people along the way. So well done for that, because then that has given you the opportunity to build that trust, and you can be both because they trust you. As an outside consultant coming in, it's I think much more problematic and much more difficult for them to do that.
For sure, because when I joined my employer, previously they had hired consultants to come and do change management. And majority of the change that had been taking place were optimizations whereby some people would be losing their jobs and the likes, right? So when I came in, automatically people thought that I'm from that company, but now I've been fully hired to be working within the bank. But I had to give them that assurance that I don't even know that organization. I'm here on my own rapport. And by the way, I will build my credibility with you guys. So it was more like a heart-to-heart conversation instead of tick box kind of exercise. So I take my time to get to know the people that I'm working with, push for my sponsors to give me more time towards the change readiness element because I keep the worst thing is to put so much time and money into something that is going to fail. So let's get the change readiness done thoroughly such that the transition will be
Absolutely.
so I understand totally what you mean by if you were coming in as a consultant, because really organizations need to have change, especially big organizations with sensitive environments, have change within the organization and sitting within strategy far away from HR. Otherwise, people won't buy into it.
Absolutely.
Sorry to
Absolutely. And
engage.
you are affecting change from a coaching perspective. You're almost leading with coaching and you're affecting the change that way. That's lovely.
Yes, thank
Very
you.
integrated. Yeah. Dima, you've had your hand up as well for a while.
Yes, thank you. I kind of agree with Tutsi and disagree a little bit. So I do agree when you're an internal, you have much more power to drive things to happen because you have somehow some power, right? As an external consultant, you don't have that power. You're just there to advise, to tell them what works, what doesn't work, and try to, you know, get the buy-in so that they own the change and it happens. On the other side, when you come in as a change management expert, consultant, and a coach, and like a coach, people, you need to gain the people, you need to, as a coach, you need to gain the trust of the people you're coaching. And many people prefer to talk and open up their heart to somebody they know he's not part of the organization. There is no judgment and there is no impact on them. And they know that
Yeah.
this person is not gonna go and, use whatever has been said against them. So that's what I do. So I build the trust as an advisor, as an external consultant. People see you as someone who is not a threat in a way. So on the other side, being an external, it does have some positive impact versus the internal one. For me, I'm a big believer of the internal for power to move things versus the external who's just an advisor thing. But definitely coaching, being an external has some good uh, some good things that you're bringing on board that if you're an internal, it might be a little bit more struggly.
Yeah. 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 Great points, Dima. Thank you. Tembakazi, you've got your hand up as well.
Thanks, Sue. So I think my point was similar to that of Dima. I've worked in both sides as an internal change manager, and I'm now in the consulting space. I think what's important for me that I've come to realize is how you position yourself when you are entering an organization, and how do you then facilitate the conversations that you're having with the people that are undergoing the change. Currently, I am a consultant, but no one in the organization that I work for knows that I'm a consultant because of the way that I've positioned myself. And as much as I'm not a coach and I'm solely a strategic change manager, I find that when I build the trust from the onset and I create safe spaces and I try to relate at the level of the people that are actually undergoing the change, that's when the shift, the dial is shifted for me. So yeah, I just wanted to bring that perspective because I think for me is how do I position myself when I'm coming into this organization, and how well do I relate with the people that I'm going to be effecting the change on or with. So yeah, that's my
positioning, building trust, and contracting, I think, is another point that's come up. You need to contract very clearly in some of these complex spaces. So I'm not going to talk more about the myths of coaching. You've probably, this is more of a recap. But these are things that are challenging with us being able to work together when we really are not perceiving, the market doesn't perceive coaching in its best. But at its best, what did we hear about what coaching can deliver? What are the benefits of using professional coaching in change process? Coaching is the best modality for changing thoughts and behaviors. So that sense of we're not actually just working at the behavior. We're not saying do this. We're able to get underneath and start to really work with what's motivating and how to drive some of that. Coaching helps you figure out where people are and what changes might be required. I'll talk a little bit later about a project that I was involved on where this was a critical element of the change process, having coaches feedback thematically on where people were at and what they were struggling with. And coaching is the only intervention that facilitates transformation. And there's something there about sustainability, right? So we're not just forcing people on a behavior level, we're really working with them through empathy and real listening and effective challenge, all of these. We're getting people to a place where they're taking it on, where they're ready, where they're able to transform and kind of leap into different spaces and places. So there is some understanding of the role that coaching can play. And it does get to that sense of just being, a deeper way to engage with change. So in conclusion, we observed little use. So this our Venn diagram is not overlapping a huge amount, except where we've got practitioners that are both change managers and coaches, but in the sense of external, professional coaches being involved in a very integrated way in change projects, we saw little of that. We do see use in crisis, so that's when the pawpaw hits the fan and the coaches are called in, and it's a very challenging time to be brought into a project and to have impact. Also, that it is not considered a change activity. So it's not, if you list all of your change activities, we're going to communicate, we're going to train. What we don't have is a lot of people saying, oh yeah, I'm going to be doing some group coaching there and some, sponsor coaching there and some, it's just not really seen in that way. It's kind of a parallel process or something that we do when and utilize as a change activity. And then those that do understand coaching, so the folks that we spoke to who really understood coaching, that we found had either been coaches themselves, they were trained as professional coaches, or in fact, they had experienced coaching. So they know what it is. They're sort of on the other side of the divide. They know and understand how beneficial coaching can be only when they've experienced it. So So that also represents a challenge, because I think a lot of clients that you might be working with really just have no exposure to having experienced coaching themselves. So I'm going to stop talking because I've been talking a lot, and see if there's any other thoughts. We've had some people really contributing, but there's lots going on in the chat. I'm afraid I can't track all of it. But would anybody else like to share a perspective? Oh, coaches are very good with silence, I just warn you. We could sit here for a bit. No, well, let's not. Let's carry on. But I think just to give everyone a 2-minute opportunity just to look out the window. We're going to change tack here. We've been speaking a lot about change and about coaching. Just maybe take a moment to look out the window, or to stand up, or whatever is required. I need to stretch my shoulders, which get hunched when I'm at my computer. Right. Anything nice going on out there? We've got some sunshine. So, okay, Ali, you're going to take us forward with some of the additional insights.
Okay.
And then we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about some of what might be possible. We've got a hand. Carol.
Yes, thanks, Sue. Great insights. I wanted to ask a question.
Yes.
So, clients are hardly keen, as we say, to have this cost associated with coaching. Similarly with change management training for capability building. So it's not that they mind having it, they know they need it, but they are not going to pay for train all our leaders on change management and then do consulting work on the change project. Same thing as coaching, but through our own wisdom, what should be the guidance on bare minimum coaching that we should be saying if you want to be successful? This needs to be in, because you wouldn't, if a change impacts, say, 10,000 people, 200 leaders, 20 executives, maybe 50 change networks. So you sort of want to target it. There has to be some sort of recipe besides what was spoken about as maybe areas of resistance. Those could always be targeted upon discovery. But I'm just saying, what is a good guidance on bare minimum to integrate it and force it? Because in our wisdom, we need to find a way of integrating it.
Yeah. Carol, that's a great question. And in fact, in the presentation that we put a link to, you'll find some sense of when coaching is needed and when it isn't, because not all change projects need coaching. And I think the question there is one of design. How might you design together around the different intercepts where coaching might be supportive? And how could you design it in a way that is cost effective? A lot of people don't think about group coaching, for example, as a way of just making it more affordable. So I think it would depend very much on the project. And what we would suggest, and we're sort of jumping the gun a little bit, is asking the question: how do we design together? How do we put our heads together to say, well, this would support this process here, or a light touch through here might be able to give us certain things, and or even do a test case in one part of the project if that's all that budget allows. Well, so I think that's really part of what we want to do today, is to get everyone thinking around, well, if we were overlapping, what might that look like, and what might that benefit be? But certainly I have no template, there's no standard template for this is going to be supportive. What I did hear more from some of the consulting people that we interviewed is that they will not undertake change without coaching, because they know that it's so important, and they just put it in there right up front for the clients, and it's non-negotiable. So they weave it; it's completely built in throughout the process, and that's it. and that's how they think about it. They will not do it because they can't afford the risk of it not working. And so and maybe that's because they're, used to charging big numbers and that's easier for them. But that's what I was hearing, more from the consulting side.
Yeah. So it's like take away the money for t-shirts and invest in cupcake. Like invest in the right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Really nice.
Sue and Alison, I just want to mention we have about 7 minutes left.
Yes. Great. Right. Lindelwa, let's hear from you quickly.
Okay, I'm going to be very quick. I just want to share some of the success stories that I've experienced. I'm a leadership and team coach. Some of the success stories, or rather trends that I'm picking up, is organizations doing leader as coach training as a way of driving deep change and institutionalizing coaching within their organizations. And these are organizations, when they take this decision, it's organizations where the sponsorship and the top leadership team really has bought into coaching, maybe either because they have experienced the power of coaching, but you can actually see the commitment right from the top. So that's the one thing that I have picked up. So the other very useful way of ensuring that coaching works is when you, from time to time, as a coach or a coaching company, meet with the leadership team and get to understand what other initiatives are there so that there's no confusion, because some organizations will bring in 3, 4 coaching companies and then there's confusion, or they bring in different service providers. So what also helps is to partner with the leadership team and say, share with us what you are picking up in the environment. We will also share with you what we are picking up as we coach. So I just wanted to share those as success stories. Thank you.
Amazing. I love that. Leader as coach training, really integrating the coaching into the organization. It's a fabulous way of doing it. But as you say, understanding and buy-in already existing there. Yeah, thanks, Lindelwa. Ellie, let's whip through these.
Forward to the components of the successful change projects. I think it's third slide on. Go forward. And that one, yes. So just very briefly, we did have some good positive stories about successful change projects where there was coaching involved. But we heard that effective change projects budget for change management from the start. And they begin early and they build strong sponsor relationships up front when they're allowed to interact with sponsors. They involve the impacted individuals in the process design, and they integrate the coaching right from the proposal stage. So we did have some opportunities to discuss this with people who had experienced this successful change. Sue, you've also had experience of coaching being involved from the beginning that you wanted to share with us.
Yeah, I've referenced that already. I mean, it was a year-long change project for probably about 100 people in one of the banks. And because the coaching was woven in to that process, we were able to thematically talk to what was happening to the delegates on that program. It was an intense program. And actually it was overwhelming and it wasn't achieving its objectives from the get-go. So we were able to really feed that back into the entire design of the project. We were able to influence. So, if there was too little coaching or no coaching at all, then it's just forcing this change. And it was, I mean, people were just dropping like flies, I'll be honest. It was, So we were really able to work with different aspects of what was going on for them in their full world, dealing with so many challenges, and do this sort of real feedback into the project. And I have to say that the thing that I guess inspired me most was that they said the best part of the project was the coaching. So that was the part where they found they could actually really undertake some change and really started to grow. And yeah, that was it was well designed in the sense that it was there from the start, and we were really able to have a huge impact for the project and the people. Also, just to mention, there was one person that I interviewed who literally just uses coaching now as a change project. Now it's a particular circumstance, but she doesn't even go through any other processes. She just thinks coaching is the only way. Now, of course, she's a coach herself, and she has also in an organization that's very, has a high understanding of coaching. So she literally uses team and group coaching whenever there are issues or specific transformation projects that they work on as her primary modality. So, there are good examples in the mix as well. Aisha, do you want to go back to your 2 slides? I know we are fast.
No. I think we must have a look at the possibilities.
Okay.
Go forward.
Because we
I'm
only have
concerned about
like
our
1
time, yeah.
minute left.
1 minute
Okay.
left. There we go.
Yeah. Yeah, so the really what we were hoping to do today, and we don't have time to do it, is to put you guys into some rooms to talk about what's possible. So Alison and I were just brainstorming what would it look like to have this overlap, to actually start working together? What would make that possible given all of the barriers? So we thought, coaches to partner in change project design. So how would you invite a coach potentially to come and have a conversation with you about where and when they might input in a project? The coaches might want to invest at the proposal stage. So much like the change managers that are investing so much time and energy, maybe coaches need to be doing that as well and not charging for that time. Maybe they need to do that at risk. What about coaches being paid as a team member? So that's a more sort of internal coaching, or, you've got a coaching role rather than an external practitioner fee. Using more team and group coaching, small proof of concepts within large projects, take an area and apply some coaching and see if it makes a difference. I don't know, change managers to lean more into the fluid agile process. This was a point that came up actually that we haven't really covered, is just the sense, certainly it was a sense that I got in speaking to a lot of folks that, this challenge of getting from A to B, the change process is you're here now, you've got to deliver B, and everyone's pushing towards this B. And yet it's actually, of course, a complex dynamic system. And so, a more agile process that allows learning to take place, that adjusts, is going to be far more effective. So this mindset of moving away from A to B and really thinking about a systemic mindset, I think, would really start to support change managers saying, okay, well, how can we use coaches if this is much more complex than this A to B? How could we work together, and what might that look like? So those are really just some thought starters, and I think all that we can offer today. We were really hoping to get your view, but maybe we'll have another opportunity to do that.
We have lots of views in the chat, so there are lots of people thinking about it. Yeah.
Thank you so much. There's been a fantastic contribution today. And really, if there's 3 takeaways, we don't work well together yet, but I'm starting to see the green shoots of where that might be, where that might happen. Cost and perceived value of coaching is a key barrier, and certainly as coaches, we need to be aware of that, and we need to be talking about what is the value and showing our value. And then the systemic thinking point was a big resonant point for me, that if we're not really understanding how complex it is, then why do we need coaching? But thank you so much, everybody, for your input and your time. And a big thank you to Lydia, you and your team, and Elise for driving today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sue, and thanks, Alison. I think there's a lot of conversation still necessary around this, and we will definitely continue the conversation. I also love all the comments in the chat. So what we will do is we're going to download the chat, and that will also be made available if people are interested in the chat. You can also contact Elise, and then she will just share that with you. And I think there are sufficient comments in the chat for us to do like an article about all your comments. So we'll definitely have a look at that. But we really appreciate the research that you've done. I think it's something that's not done often enough to look at what's that overlap and how that is working at the moment. And I think we got a lot of food for thought from you. So thanks, Sue and Alison, for the research and the presentation.
Pleasure.
I think in terms of further questions or comments, I'm not going to allow time for that, but we had many questions and many comments, and we will share that from the chat with anybody who's interested. Just in terms of future events from the chapter, on the 15th of August, we have another webinar by Terani Matsimbi, and she's going to talk about Beyond the Basics, Uncommon Lean Coffee Conversations. So I must say I'm quite interested in the whole methodology of lean coffee, and she's going to discuss it with us. We also have another webinar on the 21st of November by Melody Franklin, and it's about neuroscience and navigating change through neuroscience. So 2 SA Southern African chapter events. There's also the Change London event by the global ACMP, and it's about unlocking creativity in change management. It's a one-day event on the 4th of September. Then while I'm busy I just want to move this if you want to make a photo or take a photo. Let me see, of this QR code. Or Elise is also posting in the chat the link of a very brief survey, and we would love your feedback. So if you can just share your feedback in the survey, you can take a photo or scan the QR code or go to the link while we're busy handing out the gifts. So let's see who will get the sponsored ACMP membership for a year. Elise, if you can call the name or the names until we get somebody, because I see we have quite a few people who dropped off already. If you can just say who's the first person on your list for the ACMP membership, Elise.
Let me just get my draw here. Just a second. Thembakazi, Hansi Arendse.
Is Thembakazi still here?
Yes, I'm still here.
Wow. Okay, well, congratulations, Thembakazi. If you could send, you will now get sponsored to get ACMP Global membership for a year. You can just contact Elise, and her details are in the chat as well, and arrange with her then because she will need certain details from you to do the membership. But well done. Then the next one is the 2 lucky winners who will each get one free coaching session from MetaView. Elise, if you can just call the one name out and see whether that person is still here.
The first one is Sanelisa Mchali.
Sanelisa, are you still here? It doesn't sound like that. So the next name, Elise?
Elsabe Botha.
Is Elsabe still here?
I'm still here. Thank you very much, Elise.
Thanks,
Okay.
Elsabe. So if you can send your name through to Elise, and then she'll help you with to make the arrangements. Elise, another
Lydia,
name because
I sent a chat. So I was hoping to raise my hand before I talk. I don't just interrupt.
Okay.
I'm still here. Yeah.
Okay, Sanelisa. So we have our two lucky winners for the coaching session. So
Okay.
please contact Elise. And
So,
then just the last one is for the person who will get 5 card packs of the psychological safety card game. Elise, the name on your list, first name
Mapitsi.
and surname.
Yay, I'm here.
Okay, Mapitsi. So congratulations. If you can also
you.
send your details to Elise, we'll courier the card packs to you. So congratulations to all the winners. Thank you to everybody who attended. We really appreciate your attendance. Thank you to our webinar sponsors, Pulo and MetaView. We have lifetime sponsorship from the Talent Hub and Change. We also have strategic partners, the IPM Institute in South Africa, and Susan just signed the MOU with the South African Board for People Practices yesterday. So please follow them as well. They have fantastic events too. And so thank you to Sue and Alison again. We really appreciate what you've shared with us, and see you then at the webinar in August. Everybody, thank you. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll see you at one of our events again soon. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Lydia.
you.
Bye-bye,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Lydia. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye.
Bye, team.
How do I leave this?
Bye, team. Thank you. Thanks, Alison. I think we're now going to close.